Empowering system innovation for the green transition, the Swedish way. Welcome to this session on system innovation for the green transition, presented by Swedish Mining Innovation. For the next 20 minutes, we look forward to digging into Sweden's approach to one of the key global paradoxes of becoming sustainable. I'd like to welcome our panel, Anders Sand, who is research manager at Boliden Mineral, Charlotte Andersson, program director at Swedish Mining Innovation, Johanna Franzén. She is strategic lead at missions at Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency, and Mikael Ramström, vice president R&D, Epiroc Digital Solutions Division. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlotte, could you start and set the scene for us? Why is mining important, and why do we need a systemic approach here?
So I could ask a question back then. Why is metals important? So, I mean, we use metals in everything. And metals, you can find it in everything you use, but even so, it's used to produce everything else. So I would say that metals is the base for our modern society. So, and of course, we want sustainable production of metals. I mean, that's kind of natural in the green transformation, but I mean, in overall. And of course, we want to recycle metals. That's very important. But as it is today, we also need to extract from primary sources. So we need mines. So we also need very sustainable mines and sustainable value chains. So that sort of answers why, but why do we need a systematic approach? And well, I come from the strategic innovation program, Swedish Mining Innovation, which is one of the pioneering innovation program, which is a joint initiative between Formas, Swedish Energy Agency, and Vinnova. And we started around 10 years ago. And our mission is to increase the international competitiveness and to find a sustainable way to extract these metals. And today we will tell you more about this.
Thank you very much. There's a lot to unpack there, but we'll park that for a second. And Johanna, move on to you. And could you talk to us about your involvement in this, and maybe also give the viewers a bit of background on what is the emissions approach?
Well, this is a very interesting example of working with system innovation, and that's a big task for us at Vinnova, how to do that and how to approach the new frame of innovation policy. And I think this is an inspiring example of that. So that's why I'm here today. If you want to know more about missions, I would say that that is one way of approaching system innovation challenges on how to work with that. How do you actually make it tangible and doable in some sense? And missions could be one answer to that.
And could you give us a bit more on missions? Because I think it's a framework in the governmental agency world that is very ingrained, but not everyone is aware of the missions thinking approach. If you could tell us a bit more what that means in terms of both story and process.
Yeah, sure. We started a couple of years ago at Vinnova piloting mission-oriented innovation. After that, Mazzucato report came out, and the European Commission stated that we should start working with this. And we ended up with this very simple, elegant model, but how to actually do it in practice wasn't really there. So we started exploring and using design-oriented methods to sort of unpack what is missions, what is it about, what do we need to do, what is different, is it the same thing, is it parts of what we do today that integrate in a different way? All these questions came up. And we started looking at certain areas that we thought had a systemic approach, a need for a systemic approach, like mobility or food, that in themselves need sort of addressing the challenges they face with system thinking in some way, or new ways of thinking, new ways of working. Since the challenges are so complex, we need to do it in a different way. We build on this for several, maybe it's decades actually, with challenge-driven innovation, with the strategic innovation programs, generation after generation of instruments of working with innovation that sort of build this experience that we need to do even more to get that extra way. So missions, and I think our approach to system innovation is that you need to address many different perspectives at the same time. So you need to talk about regulation, culture, behavior, and technical solutions around the same table. So how do you gather these different approaches or different even groups of people that work with these things together? And missions can be a way of doing that, in solving how to work together and build the trust that you need to move forward, even though you have different ways of entering the system.
So I'm hearing breaking silos.
Yes.
And I'm hearing the equivalent of the Swedish smorgasbord, different perspectives and tastes and flavors in a beautiful mixture. Anders, you were from Boliden, so back to the mining aspect of missions and systemic. Tell us about your input into this and how you see the sustainable mining future.
Well, I would say in the mining industry, we have been working for a long time with that type of system innovation approach. Maybe not always calling it system innovation, but we have a long history of working together with supplier companies, like we have a representative from Epiroc here today, and also other companies, and looking at what challenges we have and what kind of competences do we need to work with those challenges, and that will end up in a systems approach. Also missions, I think we haven't really called it missions as such, but maybe you could see it also in that way, that if you start from the end, looking what do you want as an end result, that will be the mission, and then you will break that down, the path, how should we reach that, and then you have a lot of different subtasks.
You want to share with us what is the end goal? What is your vision for sustainable Swedish mining?
Well, if you say from our perspective, it would be to have top-class safety for the workers in our mines, high level of productivity. I'm making a bit diffuse statements here now, but productivity, competitiveness, that sort of things.
But inherently, it will need to be diffuse, vague statements, because we're going somewhere we don't exactly know the steps. So don't worry about being vague. It's about being ambitious. Michael, take over from there. What are your vague but ambitious visions for Swedish mining?
For us, it is to help our customers to find solutions that will exactly do what Anders said: safety, productivity, and sustainability. And we have technologies that we are innovating in that includes digitalization, automation, and electrification. And this has been our three main pillars for Epiroc during the last couple of years, actually. And we are investing not just in innovation. We actually have more than 1,000 new colleagues into our company from other companies that we have acquired over the last 2-3 years. And it's all into these areas. So as a company, we try to move away from just being a supplier of a machine to actually have solutions that deliver exactly what Anders talked about.
And I think one of the aspects that we need to cover, and maybe our more cynical viewers are asking themselves, is it possible to do sustainable mining? How do you address the conflicts of interest and some of the riskier aspects of mining?
So can I answer that?
Please, go ahead.
No, but I'm thinking from this system perspective that we are discussing. I mean, to be able to do that, you have to jointly work together, and you have to find different actors with maybe different interests in this, but also with different technological background. You need to work with industry, academia, and also the public sector, and people with different interests. And I think that has been one of the successes we have had, that we have been able to sort of join forces in this and work together towards a joint mission, then we could say. So that's one step in that direction, I would say.
Also, if I could add something, I would say that you cannot have a sustainable society, as we talk about now, unless you have mining. So we are contributing both to the rest of society in providing the means for making it sustainable, but also we are working with our own sustainability internally. So
Kaisa, what are your reflections on this?
No, first of all, as a governmental organization, I'm always curious about what do you want from us? How can we help? How can we contribute to making this systemic changes that you find necessary? But what would you, if you could change something tomorrow, what would you do? What would you change?
Are you thinking in the system
Yes.
or in the...
Or in the collaboration, what would you see as the most important thing to do tomorrow?
I think the collaboration as it is now has worked very well. And I would say that one of the key points is maybe not to say change anything tomorrow, to quite the opposite. I think, Joanna, you often point this out. Endurance is something that
Good
you
point.
need to be able, if you want to make a real change, you need to have endurance and to be able to look forward at that mission and to work together with many different actors in the system, I would say. So no immediate change, at least not from my side. Quite the opposite in that sense.
But endurance and curiosity and...
Of course, you need all that. And I think, of course, from the governmental perspective, it's very important to have that official perspective of things, but that we also can work together with different interests. Yeah.
Maybe I can add, I mean, as a company, we want to be commercial and competitive, so we don't see a need really other than regulations and legislations. But I would say towards the universities here in Sweden, that is really educating the engineers, the people we need in the future, the leaders, and also all the innovators. If the government really supports that we can have good education in Sweden, is really something that makes a difference.
I love it. That's a really big wish on the wish list. We need a good education in Sweden. I think we should all adhere to that. This is a day of enabling innovation the Swedish way, and we're now talking about Swedish mining. I'd like to put this in an international context. How are you working in a different way, both in terms of missions, but the actual mining? And how are we inspiring or collaborating with mining in other parts of the world?
Okay, so it's up to me to answer.
It's a different
I would say that,
from that point of view.
the Swedish mining cluster, as we call it, it is something that is becoming quite renowned also internationally, so many people know about it. But I think there's no easy solution to reach there. You have to work together for a long time, build trust with the collaborating partners you have, and then drive the development forward. So I think that's very much part of the secret, to have a high degree of trust between the different actors in the network.
And you're right, we actually, in the Nordics, we are very close. We work a lot together, and Boliden have mines all over the Nordics. And so for us, when we talk internationally, it's actually not even in the Nordics. We go beyond that. We go into Europe, but we go beyond that even. So a lot of the mining industry collaboration is really global when it comes to this. A lot of innovation is driven and initiated here in the Nordics and then implemented around the world.
If I can add something else, I think it's also important that we have a joint mission and a high ambition to this, because I think that has been one of the things that have been able to do this. It was a joint mission from all these different aspects to that we formulated, and then we have been working together for that mission for quite some time.
And that said also about the international aspect, I think you always have to look at what is happening internationally. Now Epiroc is working quite much on a global market, but also us as a mining operator, we also need to look at what is happening in other places of the world, because we are not best at everything. So definitely we should always have a wider look than what is happening inside Sweden.
Yeah, there's a dance that's happening. Just as you were saying, this is a critical part of the green transition. We cannot do this without mining. However, mining doesn't look the same all around the world, and it's not ubiquitous with sustainable mining, and therefore it needs to be addressed in that way. The storytelling aspect, which is an important theme throughout these 2 days, encompasses this, the balance act between how not to do it and how to do it. And Vinnova, how do you see your role there as a government agency?
In how not to do it, or in how to do it?
Thinking about how to do it and addressing the fact that there's a counter narrative and there's a counter reality in mining that is part of the story.
Well, I think our role is to provide the tools to make this possible as well as we can, but also at certain points have some expectations and some frames maybe on how we want the directionality to work, for example, and inspire for that, and also create processes that makes it possible, like we do with impact innovation, for example. I think that is our role. Then when it comes to mining in particular, and Vinnova's role in supporting mining industry globally, I would say I think these parties have a better stake in that than we do. Our role is as an enabler.
We could talk about this for a long while. We have a few minutes left, and I'd like to take some time to ask all of you, including you, Kajsa, what are the key success factors in this systemic innovation, both in terms of sustainable mining and what it means for the green transition? And Kajsa, I will start with you.
I think one of the things that we just recently did was to publish a report on the whole value chain of batteries, for example. We engage with a lot of different researchers and the academia, of course, who hold the knowledge. And as you said, we are enablers. How do we facilitate that we can spread this knowledge? I think that is a really important contribution, if I should say it. So, yeah.
Key success factors?
Well, I think I sort of mentioned it a bit. Endurance is one, but also that we have this possibility to work together with also this funding from the state. I think that's important, but also, of course, the funding from all the involved parties, and that it's also sort of transparent, that many can be involved and it's open. I think that's important.
Endurance, capital, and transparency.
Yeah.
Starting to sound slogans here, but yeah.
I'm running out of things.
You need to find new buzzwords.
No, I think trust is really important, and also the openness in allowing for some sort of agility to let actors come and go.
It's important because it's something that you have, or it's important because it's something that you need to develop over time?
I think you need to develop it, and I think that this is a good example of that the time factor has played well in this sense, that you have worked for a long time together and you have learned through the way and built that trust. And it's also something, I guess, you give, not something you get. So you have to sort of have that with you when you start.
Trust. Thank you.
I can only support. It's trust. It's trust in the collaboration you have around the innovation. It is looking at the team, looking at what competences and what parts of the value chain you have in the team. And often when we go to places with a lot of mining, Canada, Australia, Chile, we talk about Team Sweden. And it's really a good name for all what we are doing here. It's the Swedish way, Team Sweden.
Team Sweden, yeah. No, it's been proven throughout these 2 days that everyone comes back to that. There's trust, there's collaboration, and it's a national sport. We do it very well. Your final success factors.
I have a new word, so I will say synergy. You need to have win-win situations between the different actors that are collaborating.
I'm going to challenge you on that. Do you need to have the synergies from start? Do you need to know that there are synergies?
I think you need to have some basic thinking that I will get something out of this. You shouldn't, of course, be greedy, and the others should also get something out. This is something I think we have quite well working forms now inside the Swedish mining cluster. But if we think of widening it and including more societal actors, then we have to revisit this thought and see that do we have a situation where everyone is winning?
And in any situation where you have conflicts of interest, synergies become harder. So we've identified a bottleneck, and I look forward to seeing you all in a year to see how you've addressed this. Trust, transparency, endurance, synergy, facilitation.
Team Sweden.
Team Sweden. You've got work to do out in mining. Thank you.